Unsurprisingly, the penultimate episode of How to Get Away with Murder's 4th season has a lot going on. The day before he died tries to attack all of the long-term storylines at once. Isaac is in the hospital recovering from overdosing. Simon's in the hospital, too, but now he's awake and gradually remembering things. He has hired Tegan as a lawyer, and she wants to bring Annalise and the whole crew down. Frank and Laurel visit Mommy to confront her about meeting with Wes. Flashbacks show us Wes's last day alive. Asher figures out that Michaela cheated on him with Marcus in DC. Bonnie's trying to recover the Antares hard drive. These plotlines all intersect to be sure, and they interplay in a way that builds momentum and tension throughout the episode. And yet there's too much to get through for any of it to really pack a punch. It's a table-setting episode, which in the case of How to Get Away with Murder ends up being more of a bomb-setting episode. The show is getting ready to blow everything up, and it even starts setting off a few story bombs here, blowing up Michaela and Asher's relationship for one. That explosion isn't nearly as powerful as it's played. Even Annalise is like, we don't have time for this. For being such a big emotional moment for both characters, it falls flat and feels contrived. Too much of the day before he died is just going through the motions instead of weaving a compelling thriller. Even Simon waking up doesn't hit as hard as it should. There's some suspense to the way he starts to remember things, but it builds unevenly and very predictably. Simon doesn't remember anything. And then suddenly remembers just enough to shift the blame to them. And then they find a way to silence him. Perhaps the most surprising part of all of this is that silencing doesn't involve actual murder. No more dead people, Laurel says in this episode, which is honestly good advice for not just the characters but the show itself. We're still preoccupied with Wes's murder, and adding more dead bodies to the mix just compounds the show's increasingly out of control pacing. The day before he died confirms that both Laurel's parents are ultimately responsible for Wes' death. Her mom called her dad to tell him Wes was going to the police. He probably gave Dominic the orders, but she's certainly complicit. Her motive isn't entirely clear, although Laurel suggests it was all for money. So did we even learn anything new from this revelation? It doesn't really feel like it. None of it is shocking. None of it has gravity. There's a similar weightlessness to the Isaac of it all. Few things have been more confusing about this show than Isaac's arc. His dynamic with Annalise is one of the most wildly inconsistent character relationships on the show. As good as Jimmy Smits is, he just seems like he was wedged into the show with little thought as to how Isaac would actually fit into the narrative as a character. His scene with Annalise isn't terrible. Smits and Viola Davis are great together. And yet, it's hollow. It's forced. Even they're just going through the motions, and it distracts from the rest of what's happening in the episode. Even though the day before he died doesn't spin too